Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning, everybody. So, we started discussing about the media, laws, and women. How the portrayal of women in media at present is made, and what are the areas where there is a need for improvement. And in that regard, what are the laws that prohibit such obscene practices, which is evident at times in different media, the media of all sorts. So you see, there has been a cultural shift. There is a diffusion of culture, as a result of which the Western culture is now believed to be the benchmark, and because of the intermingling of the various social values and norms, you can say that we are opening up. We are attempting to integrate ourselves with the world culture, and there lies all sorts of difference in perception. To what extent it is good or bad, it is for the morality to decide. But changes are very evident. The portrayal of women is now very different as compared to earlier times. And in that regard, we started discussing yesterday the media, law, and women. Now, moving on with the discussion that we had yesterday, it is evident that yes, what has led to the growth of our concern, the reasons, uh, because the portrayal of women in media is still considered to be uh, inappropriate. So, what is the need? Let us start with this need for regulation. You see, there are two ways out. In order to ensure that the portrayal of women in media is dignified and they are not commoditized just to help a product sell, and the different social moralities are compromised, there are two ways out. How to uh, curb this menace, the growth of indecent portrayal of women in media? How can and what could be done in this regard? So there are two options. One is self-restraint. You exercise a control over such practices. So such initiations should come from people themselves who are very much a part of it. And what is the other way out? The regulation. We need certain regulations which should guide us what we could do and what we could not do. You see, with the passage of time, these prohibitory forces have become very uh, defunct. They are not very effective anymore. It takes a hell of a time to attend to such concerns. You see, I'm telling you all this because most of you must have been aware of this OTT. Any idea what is OTT? Even the film Dil Bechara was launched on OTT. This media
It's
has
an
been
online digital platform.
online,
It's a
digital.
digital platform.
Okay, you are correct. But what is the full form of this OTT? What OTT stands for? OTT refers to over the top platform, and the description is the very same. But mind it, this platform is not regulated at all. We do not have a censor board over here. Very much unlike the films, very much unlike even the advertising world, where we have at least an advertising standard council of India. But on OTT platform, you can go to any extent. Your concepts, the portrayal of women, the uh, representation of women in could be seen in a very poor light. And very shocking is that we don't have any mechanism to regulate. So there is the self-restraint. That is the only way out. If the government figures out that they are going overboard, definitely they have to jump into the situation to make it more conducive. But yes, so you will find that the more and more laws are not being very effective. So it should be from within the one who are the perpetrators of the crime. They should figure out what important role they have to play, and particularly when it concerns the media, which reaches out to so many people at the same time, shaping up their uh, opinion, their attitude, their morality. So media plays a very crucial role. And if something is portrayed in a very denigrate manner, the women-related issues, now that is going to create real troubles. So what is the need? Need for regulation. You see, because of this indecent representations of women, in fact, there is a growing indecent representation of women in such media. Yesterday we discussed about the different media, newspaper, television, even outdoor, whatever media you think of, the pattern is the same. So the references to, this also involves the references to women in publications. In say, when you write certain books or certain public document, how the women are portrayed. Even you think of these novelists, you find more and more sexual explicit descriptions in some of the renowned authors. Now, to what extent? And they carry out all this in the name of realism. So therefore, I said this allegation of obscenity is very difficult to interpret because it is guided by the society's value system. It is to be analyzed in terms of the situation that a person is in. So number of forces will interplay. Number of different forces will intrude into the analysis of indecency. What is indecent? What is not? It is not. It cannot be put in black and white. This is indecent. This is not. So therefore, all sorts of complexity, ambiguity is there. So particularly when we talk of advertisement or any representation of women which is denigrating and which is obviously derogatory to women. Now in this context, they have come up with a act, the Indecent Representation of Women Prohibition Act. Please do remember, IRWA, Indecent Representation of Women Prohibition Act 1986. And obviously it was legislated to effectively prohibit the indecent representation of women. Mind the word indecent representation. That is a catchword, because these terms are also open to be interpreted. You can interpret these terms very differently. So it all is restricted with the indecent representation of women through any publication, media, or advertisement. Mind the different terms. Publication, like if you describe in your write-ups, in your articles, or in any novels, such uh, elaboration in which uh, it is considered to be appropriate for the reference of a woman, that will be taken to book. So situations where, particularly in the mass media, when the portrayal of women in the mass media is considered to be inappropriate, indecent in terms of the representation of women folk, definitely this act will uh, be effective enough to cover it up. And the object of this act is to prevent depiction of the figure, form of body of women in any indecent form, which is likely to deprave, corrupt, and injure the public morality. Now that last paragraph is very important. The object of this act is to prevent depiction of the figure, form of body of women in any indecent form, which is likely to deprave, that is morally corrupt, and injure the public morality. So if something goes against the public morality, and that itself is somewhat a vague term, what is public morality? Nothing is defined as such. We get the clues from the common observations and a very generalized picture of our culture. So if it goes against the public morality, the depiction of the women, definitely this issue will be covered through this particular act. So there was a need to come up with such a regulation, the act. Now, well, time and again, it has been said that in particularly in recent times, you find that the representation of women in media of women is not in good taste, and it is because of the materialistic culture that we have started living in. We are hell bent upon achieving the objective at any cost, and we don't mind using women in this context. Now that is something very derogatory. You can go to any extent to accomplish the business objectives. Think of advertising. At times they cross the limits. They come up with all sorts of indecency. And the idea is to help them sell the product. So how they go unethical at times, that is a matter of debate. What is the limiting line which they are not supposed to cross over? This is supposed to be analyzed. Because obviously a middleman, any business organization is not very concerned about morality. They are only concerned about the business. They are very particular about getting the profit. So in that context, if women are to be misused, even they don't mind it. Now that shows your business model, that shows your business values that you cherish. Some companies would never do it. So it depends upon the values, the ethics, the business ethics on which the business hinges upon. So it is seen that all the norms are being flouted, which relates to the obscenity, decency, or the morality. And obviously there is a systematic overdose of nudity and vulgarity. Now that is something which is not in good taste. Therefore, when media carries such stories, media is supposed to be accountable. The onus lies on the media as to why did they choose to carry such stories or such depiction of the women form. The media is questionable, and this act attends to the various this particular issue only. So in the media industry, women are treated as goods to promote sales. That was discussed. That is what is called commoditization. You are using women to serve a purpose. So you are treating them as if they are the goods to help you sell. You do not consider them as living beings, entity with emotions, feelings, crave for dignity, respect. You set aside all these basic human values and you use women to serve a purpose. Now, that is something very derogatory. That is something that we just cannot withstand anymore. Therefore, such laws, such public pressure that media should desist from such indecent practices where there is a depiction of women in poor light. So women and their concerns or the problems are no longer visible in media. There has been increasing commoditization of women in the mass media. You see, the women-related issues are not very seriously covered. They are not given enough of time and place in the space in the media. And if at all such stories are carried in the media, it is for just to sensitize people, sensationalize people. That is not, the idea is not to serve a social cause, just to increase the circulation figure or the TRP of the news programs. Such uh, news items are portrayed in a manner that could add up to the TRP. Now that is very unfortunate. There lies the objection. And most of the issues that pertains to the interest of women are set aside. So we do not justify the coverage, the analysis, the seriousness uh, which should be extended to the coverage of such women-related issues. That is not there. So be it newspaper, television, films, magazines, hoardings, whatever media that comes to your mind, and particularly of late OTT platforms, the portrayal of gender as a product is evident. And there lies the biggest problem. And it has been quite some time. You see, it is said that we should uh, develop sophistication, we should uh, develop our ability to treat gender at the same platform. But this is not something which is very evident. The hypocrisy is very much evident, and that is to be curbed at any cost. So there was a need for regulation, right? And let us discuss about this act, IRWA, what this act is all about. The basic provisions of this act. And we simply attend to the basic issues relating to this act. So what this what this act is all about, just try to figure this first. This act, what it relates to, first things first, what this act relates to, IRWA 1986, remember the year. The Indecent Representation of Women Prohibition Act 1986 provides for the regulation of representation of women in the media, how the women should be represented in the media. So there is an obvious regulations that one has to stick to. It prohibits indecent representation of women through advertisements, books, writings, paintings, figures, or in any other form. So the idea is how the women should be portrayed in the media, that is to be understood in a proper light. So this act prohibits the indecent portrayal of women in any medium, and particularly with reference to advertisement, books, writings, even paintings or figures. So this was the content of this act. Now section 4. Remember the section 4 prohibits the production, sale, hire, distribution, circulation, sending by post any books, pamphlets, slides, films, writings, drawings, painting, etc., which contains indecent representation of women in any form. So you cannot dispatch uh, any publication to anybody which contains such gross, indecent representation of women. So if you publish, if you sell, you are the culprit. Getting it? You cannot deny the fact that you were a party to it. Even if you sell such books, you will be under the ambit of the act. And in fact, we will discuss that the various provisions of the act is not very stringent. We will discuss the various penalties that could be meted out in such cases. So therefore, National Commission of Women. Now this is a watchdog. It's a very effective an agency which attends to the various issues relating to women. So National Commission of Women has suggested modifications in the Act because, as I said, this Act is not very stringent in nature, and it will be evident when we discuss the various provisions for the penalty that is propagated. So this NCW, National Commission of Women, has suggested modifications in the Act and elaborates upon ways to strengthen it, make it more stringent, more give the tiger the tooth, more effective, and make it workable so that the objectives can be achieved. So that was it. Obviously, as we discussed, there is a prohibition of publication or spending by post of books. You cannot publish, you cannot post, mind it. Pamphlets containing indecent representation of women. You cannot publish it, you cannot post it, you cannot sell it. No person shall produce or cause to be produced, sell, let to hire, distribute, circulate, or send any post, any book, pamphlet, paper, whatever, drawing, paintings, photograph, representing a figure which contains indecent representation of women. So indecent representation of women in any form, in any media, is being prohibited as per this particular act. So there is a prohibition. And in case of companies, because we are talking about the media law, if certain offences are committed at the office premise, every against women, of course, any offence against this act has been committed by a company, everyone who at the time of offence was there will be entitled for punishment. Not only the company, not only the authority concerned, but everyone who was present at the time of the perpetration of such crime. So every person who at the time of the offence was committed was in charge of or was responsible to the company would be deemed to be guilty. So now the provisions are very evident. You cannot shrug your shoulders and say that I have got nothing to do with it. So if you do not do anything, it simply exhibits that you comply with the crime. Now the final part is penalty. Penalty. What is the provision for the punishment over here? Now these punishments are not very stringent as it was expected. Let us have a quick glance at it. Any person who contravenes the provisions of section 3 or 4 shall be punishable on first conviction with an imprisonment of either description for a term which may extend to 2 years. Now, a term which may extend to 2 years. So at most, you will somebody will be getting an imprisonment for 2 years only, and with fine which may extend to 2,000 rupees. Now, this is a very meager amount of money with reference to uh, the loss of the value of the currency. Only 2,000 rupees, and in the event of a second or subsequent conviction with imprisonment for term not less than 6 months, but which may extend to 5 years. So there is a obviously depending on the crime, depending upon the non-compliance for the next time, and also with a fine not less than 10,000 rupees, but which may extend to rupees 1 lakh. So these are the provisions for somebody perpetrating the crime of representing women in poor light in the mass media. Now, in fact, it has been. It is time to sum up whatever that we have discussed. It is alleged that media is not playing a very effective role. It is charged that they comply with commoditization and sensationalism involving violence, sex, portrayal of women in indecent light. And this is all the more difficult, all the more unfortunate, because legitimate issues of women are not being given the platform that is required to be given to them. No serious discussion, no serious analysis of the issues pertaining to the women problem is included in this media. And if at all it is at times, it is just to sensationalize people, just to increase the circulation figure, just to increase the TRP ratings of such programs. So no serious discussion, no deeper analysis of the problem is being made as far as these are related to women issues. So the role of media is somewhat dubious in this regard, because they are only concerned about their circulation figures. And media as a watchdog, media is to play a very sensible role, because media is expected to play the role of a watchdog, the role of a whistleblower. They should report the crime of indecent exposures of women in different media to the policymakers, to the one who are entitled to take actions against them. So their role is of utmost importance. They should play the role of a watchdog. They should be very vigilant what developments are taking place in what media, so that they could obviously report the crime against women pertaining to gender violence, maybe acid attack, maybe dowry-related problems. So all such various issues relating to women, domestic violence perhaps. So all such issues should be highlighted. The media has to play the media is required to be on the driver's seat. They should lead in this regard and develop the public opinion. They should not put these serious issues under the carpet. That is something not very good. So it is high time, finally, that the campaign against domestic violence, rape, sexual harassment, degradation of women, or a degrading portrayal of women in media, insensitive abortion of female foeticides needs to be highlighted. So media definitely should stay away from sensationalizing things. It should make an attempt to desist from getting cheap popularity by the circulation figure at the cost of the women's portrayal, and play a very constructive role. So that is in a nutshell. Women portrayal is to be guided as per the decency norm. It should be presented in a way that dignifies the position of women that they actually deserve. And any denigration of women through their inappropriate or indecent portrayal of women in media is to be looked down upon. Either one could consider the self-restraint or the various provisions of the act that was discussed. So that was about media, laws, and women. So that brings to an end of our discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.